We strongly oppose Justin Trudeau's plan to sign Canada on to the UN Global Compact on migration. It gives influence over Canada's immigration system to foreign entities. It attempts to influence how our free and independent media report on immigration issues. And it could open the door to foreign bureaucrats telling Canada how to manage our borders.
Well, the immigration debate caught fire again after the Conservatives accused the Liberal government of signing away Canada's sovereignty over the border. Now, Canada is poised to sign on to something called the UN Global Compact on Security. That's an agreement to help deal with the migrant crisis around the world. But here are the facts. It is a non-binding agreement. It has no legal authority. Nonetheless, Andrew Scheer and U.S. President Donald Trump, among others, have all refused to sign it. Is this fear-mongering, or does this agreement actually meant to send a chill down the backs of legitimate critics of Canada's border policy? To talk about that and the alleged security threat posed by China's biggest telecom company, Huawei, the Scrum is back, Tonda McCharles is back, Bob Fife is back, Craig Oliver is back, and our special guest this round is the former Conservative Immigration Minister, Chris Alexander. And we'll start with you, Chris. Welcome back. You said that Andrew Scheer is factually incorrect about the Global Compact. What does he have wrong about this?
Well, I think it's factually incorrect to say that it's a treaty or an agreement that would have any legal force whatsoever. And it's factually incorrect to say that it would undermine our sovereignty. This is a political declaration. We can take it or leave it, as can all other countries. But we should take it because when you look at the 23 objectives, they read like a checklist of the things Canada has done in recent decades to win a place in the eyes of the world as basically the model and the example of how to manage immigration well. Now, we have some issues right now, but if you look at the big picture, we are the lodestar. We are the country that does these things best. And we should be promoting these best practices elsewhere in the world, because when other countries get it right and there's less irregular migration, less fraud, less rule breaking, that's good for Canada and it's good for the global economy on which we depend.
I think that the idea that Scheer has pushed in the Commons this week, that it somehow binds our hands, is misleading. Whether there are some other concerns in there about stifling debate and whatnot, perhaps that's an arguable point. But the fact is, it doesn't have the force of law.
But I thought that the over-the-top criticisms that Mr. Scheer was making also tell me that he's ready in the election campaign to appeal to the kind of concerns and fears, unnecessarily in my view, that a lot of Canadians do feel about around the whole migration issue.
But the worrisome thing here, to Craig's point, is that the Conservatives think that this is a good strategy to try to incite fears among Canadians about the millions of migrants are going to be coming to our shores. And they better be careful, because they tried that line last election campaign and they got clobbered for it.
Well, Chris Alexander, you were on the front. Look, you were the sharp end of the stick on that, and it was widely seen as something that did not help your party. Is Andrew Scheer making a tactical political error here?
Well, first, everyone's right. There is a very demagogical push out there, not originating in Canada, originating outside, to portray this compact as a secret plan for mass migration around the world. And that is simply not the case. That is propaganda, that is disinformation, and responsible people in Canada, leaders in Canada, shouldn't be pushing that agenda at all. In fact, we should be standing against it, standing up for regular, orderly, and safe migration, which is good for everyone, good for the global community, and certainly good for Canada. There is no country that has drawn more benefit from orderly, rule-based, legal immigration than this country, and also from being generous to refugees over the long term. That's what this compact seeks to bring to a much larger group of countries, so that we all share best practices, so that we don't have the disasters of the last few years with the migration crisis in Europe and elsewhere.
All right, I want to move on to another issue, the security issue and China. The U.S. has asked Canada to detain, Canada did, then extradite the CFO of China's biggest telecom company, Huawei. Now remember, this is the daughter of the founder of the company. She is a celebrity in China. The Chinese are furious. Bob, you broke the story. There's a couple of elements. First of all, is Canada now, because of our legal obligation and a treaty, drawn into a very dangerous U.S.-China trade war?
Absolutely. I mean, as you heard with Mr. Manley and Fadden in the earlier part of the program, there is a global war going on now between the United States and Beijing. It's a trade war, and it's a big war over national security involving Huawei. We're stuck right in the middle of this. The Americans are telling us, you ban Huawei from 5G technology, and you arrest the corporate royalty, the founder's daughter. And we are now stuck in this. China's furious at us. The Americans are saying, you better bar Huawei, because if you don't, we're going to cut off intelligence to you. So we don't really have a lot of choice here.
I want to go to Chris Alexander. Chris, obviously you spent a lot of time at the UN. John Manley said that Canada's foreign policy is now being run by hardliners in Washington. We want to trade with China, but we basically have to do Washington's bidding on this. What do you make of that?
I think it's going too far to call them hardliners in Washington. There's a consensus on this issue among Republicans and Democrats that the see no evil, hear no evil, blind faith that was shown when China was admitted to the World Trade Organization in 2001 needs to be revisited. There hasn't been an even playing field for Western countries in China. China is not evolving towards human rights and the rule of law the way everyone hoped it would. And Huawei is not a normal private sector company. It is connected to the state. Yeah. The state operates through it, and there's a big intelligence operation underway, economic espionage and otherwise, against Canada and other states. That has cost us. It's cost us in telecoms. It's cost us in other sectors. We need to be careful here, and we don't want to be an outlier in the Five Eyes community, in the alliances and intelligence sharing community on which we've depended throughout our history.
Bob.
Look, this is not a Trump administration move here. 6 chiefs of the U.S. foreign intelligence services have identified Huawei as a national security test. Bilaterally, in the United States, Democrats and Republicans on the Intelligence Committee say it is a national security risk.
New Zealand, Australia.
New Zealand, Australia, and now the Great Britain's MI6 guy is saying it is.
And Japan.
And Japan has now joined it. So it is definitely not a Trump administration thing. But, you know, Mr. Manley's got a reason to say this. He's also a board member of TELUS, and TELUS does not want to have Huawei banned because it's going to cost them a lot of money to pull out that equipment.
But in this process, we're being put under tremendous pressure by the Americans, who really want to press and weaken our sovereignty. And I think we're going to have to start asking ourselves this question: can we any longer rely on the Americans in terms of trade, security, to protect our interests and to be a reliable ally? And I'm not sure we can.
All right, I got to leave it there. I think we're at the beginning of what, I mean, this could be the fuse that lights a much bigger powder keg. We hope not, but certainly has that potential. A ton of Bob, Craig, and Chris Alexander. Great to see all of you guys on the program.